Now, you heard me say it before, none of these people in this church are masculine. We're about to get into that. And they have a perceived masculinity that kind of cracks me up. So, masculinity, let's get into the traits here. Responsible, confident, respectful, honest, willing to self-improve. That means you're willing to admit you made a mistake and you can develop. And they have values. And accountability. Yes, being accountable is being a man. Okay. Emotionally stunted people are caricatures of men. If you know emotionally stunted person, they perceive anger to be the ipso de facto decision maker in masculinity. I'm mad! Like, okay. Now at this church, their values are being white and being a member of the church. That's not a joke. And it's because the church will provide. And when I say that, you don't understand exactly what that means. An emotionally stunted person out in the wild cannot connect with a woman in an emotional, meaningful way to get a wife. So they are codependent on the church. One of their most famous tactics is to trick a woman into saying something against the church, and then the church comes to threaten to kill them, and then the white knight that is a member of the church that is trying to kill them goes, look, I'll marry you so they don't kill you. Okay? That's not masculinity. Okay? That's being a dick. Masculinity, now, you want to talk about courage. I remember Stu was like, I got courage! No, Stu doesn't have courage. What he has is the confidence that the church is going to bail him out and back him no matter what. And this came from, when I was talking to him, he was like, the church will kill you if you put me in jail. And I said, okay. And he was like, what? Oh, okay. Now, these guys love threatening people, and this was a funny thing with Stu, where we had a back and forth about guns, because Stu's favorite tactic is to hold people at gunpoint, and then make them do stuff, threaten to kill your family if they don't kill you. Think about, Jose, he was raping that guy's wife and had her poisoning this dude with heavy metals so he could steal his land. These people do this, and this is a church practice. Most of their land is gotten this way, okay, and it's somehow legal, alright? When I was talking with Stu, everything he said went back to the church. Yes, the church babies him like the baby he is, so he is not masculine. When I reported the church initially as a human trafficking ring, we'll just call this guy, we'll call him a Sound of Freedom man. A Sound of Freedom man came to my house, and he was like, blah, 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 and I was like, yeah, I stuck it to the Church of the Anal Eating Mummy, those fucking pedophiles, and then he was like, no. He's like, well, I got a secret for you. I'm one of them, and I'm a man. And then he proceeded to tell me that some of the people he freed from human trafficking, he had them straight up kill themselves so he could get his human sacrifices. And then I was like, you sound like a piece of shit to me, brother. And he was like, I'm not a piece of shit. And I'm a man. And in his psychology, these people believe being a man is taking it in the ass mentally, physically, and emotionally. That's what being a man is. Taking it in the ass. Anytime anybody ever tries to stand up to these people, they kill them. Okay? Me standing up to them, they spent all their time trying to murder my ass. Okay? There's another dude, he's pretty popular on the YouTube. He stood up for himself in court, and they locked him down under a permanent contract, and now he just hurts himself on YouTube for money. Okay. That is how these people do. They do not respect real masculinity because they are not masculine. And this even goes all the way up to the president. Okay. When I was president, the wives were explaining to me the importance of the anal eating mummy is you're not just having sex with her, she sucks you up into her vagina and you're back in the womb where you're safe and it's warm. And that's what the temple out in the desert represents. It represents a lady's womb. So my theory that malignant narcissists are actually babies that want to get back in the womb, is actually founded in the secret society of this church. And the whole thing from out there in that Mamelon, out there in that temple, is you can kill anybody you want, you can do all the atrocities, and you don't have to worry about being murdered yourself. You don't have to worry about, say it with me, accountability. You don't have to worry about anybody holding you to account for your actions. You can be a complete piece of shit and not have to live in the fear and anxiety of being held to account for your actions. Yes. And when we started talking about that, the wives were like, don't ever tell anybody. I was like, well, that just implies that all religion's matriarchal. And no, it isn't. Men are the only leaders, and this was explained to me by the wives. Men are the only people. Every religion has to be patriarchal because only men can rape people because they have dicks. And I was like, you ever met a lady with a strap on? And they... No. I was like, hyena females have a fake giant penis to let men know what it is. Hey, ladies, maybe you need to start trying to rape men. I'll tell you what. This kind of thing kind of cracked me up because I was like, so the temple we're in is actually a womb, and I'm a baby again. And as a baby, and we got into this theory, it's an old-ass psychology theory that babies are omnipotent. They know everything because of the unconscious mind. They know every language, they just don't have the motor skills and functions to express it. And they explained to me through hypnosis and destroying your brain with as much heavy metals as they possibly can to get you into the right neuron state, that you can tap into that unconscious mind and see the future and the past and time travel. And then they were explaining to me how time traveling works, and it's wrong. They got like the Back to the Future time travel, where you do something in the past and it affects the present, instead of the actual Mobius strip in the splitting timeline time travel in the church, so that's a little out of date. And the other side was, even in those trips, I was constantly limited by what my brain already knew. So while I was in the LSD trips, connected to this portal out there that's like a gravity well or something, I was literally like, where they were like, oh, we sent the original founder of the church back, and he saw that Native Americans were white. It's projection, because he's an ego brain. When you have ego brain, you use projection in everything. And I remember Karen and Stu doing this, where they projected all their insecurities onto me and then didn't understand that I'm not them. So I time travel and I actually see Native Americans and Aztecs performing the same rituals they do at this church, where they murder people, eat their hearts, eat their brains to gain their strength. And I was just, you guys are a bunch of baboons. It's not how anything works. And they were expressing to me, and then they explained to me, if you're one of the members of the church and you want to get up really quick, corner your church leader and then kill him and eat his brain, and they have to make you the new church leader. Yeah, there you go. You want control. And after a minute of them like kind of explaining this stuff to me, I realized insecure people have control issues. That is just a fact. And the whole thing was about control. Control over everything. Okay? And harassing and terrorizing people, because they explained to me that part of the brain eating is the brain has to be petrified. It has to be absolutely terrified when they eat it. To gain the power, because the person has to know that they are afraid or else their soul can escape. Yes, people actually, this is a real religion in the US. And people actually do these things. And I was like, that's fucked up. And they petrify it through torture and just being completely disgusting and just being gross. That's what they do. Until that brain is completely fucking terrified and wants to be dead. And then they kill the person. And then they eat their brain. And then they're like, oh boy, he's my slave now. And I'm just like, great. That's fucking stupid. We're not doing that anymore. And they explained to me, you have to do that. And then they explained to me the rules of living in the womb, which is also connected to the universe. And the portal out there is kind of like an umbilical cord that connects to your head and enables you to control everything. And I was just like, what? But yes, so even the leader is a baby who lives in a womb out in the desert that controls everything by screaming and throwing a tantrum and making everybody else anxious and gives everybody anxiety, and they're all terrified. And that anxiety comes from the tetralead brain. Tetralead causes anxiety, so these people have anxiety issues. If you're a part of the church, that's where your anxiety comes from. It's being a member of the church. It's called Stockholm Syndrome, by the way, and you should probably just quit the church. I have not spoken anything that did not happen or things I did not know about. So, they explained that to me, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then we get into this conversation about real masculinity, and they were like, real masculinity is the neat shit, the ubermensch. You throw out all your morals, and you behave like a complete piece of shit. You just do whatever you want, and then you don't let the fear and anxiety get to you by basically popping LSD. And then they kept trying to traumatize me into, like, having dissociative identity disorder, so I had two identities. That way I could be fucking both God and the devil, and then it didn't work, so they just had to alternate hypnotizing me into either being the God or the devil. That did not go well. That was really stupid. And as I was expressing to the wives, because even my version of Jose, the guy that started this church, was different than the former presidents. My versions of all their church leaders, the former church leaders, because that's what you do out there. You get all their memories, and then you relive their lives, and then you have all their memories, and then you get the desirable psychology of the malignant narcissist, and you behave like a total fucking cock. That's what you do out there. And because they're all malignant narcissists, you really don't need to know that much about them. They're all basically the same guy from different periods. The wives were explaining to me this is what true masculinity is. This is the higher self. And I was like, why is the higher self a complete piece of shit that gets scared and paranoid and then has to hide out in a church womb temple in the middle of the desert instead of just doing the right thing and being a good person? And there was just this, don't ever say anything bad about the guy. He's very sensitive. And being sensitive isn't masculine. Okay? Being emotionally stunted where you only care about your emotions is not masculine. And once again, men in particular, when it comes to being a man, they're a caricature. They're a projection of what they perceive to be masculine. Okay? Violence and threats and control are all insecurities. And this even fed into, I remember Blondie, where Blondie was like, basically, I guess one of the wives was like really rich, one of the women I had sex with, and he was basically trying to explain to me I wasn't going to get a rich wife because I'm poor and I belong being poor. And he just kept doing that. Him and these other two losers were explaining to me that they had to keep money out of my hands no matter what, regardless of what happened, which is a big chunk of the church and all this other shit. It's a caste system, and you're not allowed out of your caste. Another thing that's really stupid if you're a church member is the whole reason they promise you a planet is promising you the planet is promising to return your control to you after you're dead. Okay, because when you're a member of the church, they have control over everything and you're a mindless tool. You're welcome. And the reason they tell you badly want a planet to control is because you want control. Because they have taken complete control over you. So the pressure release is, oh, one day I'll have a planet. Anyways, Blondie's classist shit was weird because I didn't even know these women or who was rich or who was poor. The only thing I knew was after talking to him is he didn't just derive his masculinity from the church, because when you're a part of the church, you feel like you can do anything because they'll back you no matter what. They'll go in the court and lie, they'll kill, they'll murder, they'll do every atrocity known to man, just like they did to me. They'll do every atrocity known to man to make sure that the church leader gets his way, so they don't have real masculinity, which is why they're insecure. They never have to grow up, which is why they want to be in the womb, where it's warm and wet. But, yeah. So, Blondie basically goes, I have real masculinity. And I was like, really? And he was like, I'm rich. How do you like that? Now, I'm going to go ahead and say it. security, even to a woman and a man, is financial in the modern world. Back in the day, security was being strong and able to go hunting and shit. But as things developed, eventually it just turned into money. Okay? You don't need weapons, you don't need anything else, you just need money. Fuck tons of money, and there you are secure. So, he's kinda right, but kinda wrong, because that's not real security. That's like compensation for security. That's like pretending you're masculine, when all your security comes from you have fuck tons of wealth. He was explaining to me that I wouldn't understand the good life because I don't derive my security from money. And I was just like, go away. He was like, I am secure, I'm a man. Somebody takes your money away, what happens to you, Blondie? And he was, you're a child. The real you comes out. Your money is nothing but a mask. It's a facade. It's you pretending, okay, to be an adult. And once again, emotionally stunted people are stuck at the age of a child. When they have to be manly, what comes out is a projection of what they think a man is. It is a caricature of a human. The same kind of feeling we get from a hug or a kiss, they get from human suffering, okay? And it's because they're caricatures of adults. Every church leader is a caricature of what they believe a man is, what an adult is, okay? And this ridiculous facade, this weird amalgamation of potentially kind of masculine but not really. And this kind of feeds into some of the church leaders are weirdly feminine. Like, they're like femboys, and I remember this from being president. They're almost womanly in nature, and especially if you only care about your emotions, you come off as very womanly. So, and they themselves, in their own masculinity, are like basically white entitlement and give it to me. And this, well, remember one of the wives I was talking to, one of my wives, she went on a thing talking about she didn't want to marry out of her class because classism is a thing, and she didn't want to marry out of her class because poor people are poor. And I was like, well, poor people can teach you a lot about life because they have more experience than rich people. And we got into that, and I was like, as a poor person, I've had to solve all my problems my entire life by myself. I was like, I didn't have money to fix my car. I don't have money to piss about. And we got into that, and I was like, we both bring something different to the table because you have different life experiences, and we kind of spoke about that. And then she was kind of okay with marrying down, I guess. And that's good. That's good, you know, that's life experience and all that stuff. But when she talked about only marrying in her class, she went on about entitlement, and how the guys and wealthy white guys and kids are all entitled, and it all comes back to the securities in their money. They are used to getting their way because they have fuck tons of money, and no matter what, they have money, and the security comes from money. It's not real masculinity, it's not real courage, it's not real bravery, it's all bravado, okay? None of these people are real men. Especially when, and we don't got a lot of time, but when it turns into values. And Republicans do it all the time. You ask a Republican what their values is, I guarantee you they're just going to stare at you blankly. They got nothing, okay? Or they'll say something stupid like freedom in America. And those aren't values, you dumbass. Those are things, okay? Like, you're a moron. Yeah. This was, I don't know, this shit kind of cracked me up. And it was funny because I think it's self-actualization is where real masculinity comes from. Yeah. I myself was insanely brave until I started getting poisoned with aluminum, which is what these people do. They completely destroyed my brain and my nervous system to get me to sign that perjury and whatever. Shit happens. I wish there were more good people that were trying to help me, but there wasn't. I'm an adult! Just fucking... Blondie just goes broke one day and fucking, he's like a hobo and he just fucking kills himself because he's insecure. My value is gone. Dude, they had the balls. I remember just kept telling them I needed money. And I needed money for real things like chelation therapy and medical help. Nope, nope, nope. They were like, your value is tied to how much money you have. Your value's tied. Yes, if I had money and assets, I could change things. I don't. Okay. Everything's easy when you're rich. That's a fact. Thank you.